All right, looks like we are live. Let's see if this is going to load correctly. All right, looks like we are live. Let's see. Okay. Make sure this is going on YouTube. Second, everybody.
There's so many ways you can get.
All right, looks like we are in action. Okay, so today we're going to go on the second zip code for Detroit, since we looked at the zip codes yesterday. For those of you that was not here yesterday, I had a few guests on my podcast who have been very successful on investing in affordable housing in Detroit. One of the folks was Stuart Hicks. Stu runs a Section 8 placement company, which means that he can help you inspect property. He can also help you screen tenants. Brandon, 12% property manager. Yes, that is what you would want to pay if you want to have really good property managers in a certain area. I know that's probably what Stu charges. I think it goes down to 10% if you have like over an X amount of properties. But in Detroit, there are probably over, I want to say, at least 15, if not 20 housing agencies in Detroit. So you really want to be able to figure out which housing agency you're dealing with in that area, and you need someone with local expertise. So for some of you that might be thinking about investing in Detroit, I would highly recommend reaching out to Stu. I've also had Ashley Hamilton on. Ashley was probably one of the guests with the most downloaded episodes on Your Pockets podcast. Really, really great woman. She went from $20,000 a year as a waitress to $40,000 a month from Section 8 in Detroit. So if that doesn't help you sleep better at night, I don't know what will, but definitely check out these two podcasts if you guys are looking into it. But here are our 5 zip codes that Stu recommended to me, and these are the more desirable areas in Detroit. So that's 48221, 48235, 48219, 48224, and 48234. All right, we're going to stay consistent, guys. It's my birthday today, but we're still going to be analyzing deals because once you commit to something, you keep going. And this is separation season right now. When everybody's taking the foot off the gas pedal, you keep going and we stay consistent, and we're going to keep on analyzing deals together. So this property is in the second of the 5 zip codes. It looks like it has a finished basement. So for the most part, it actually looks pretty solid. It looks like they just put in new flooring. You might still want to do an inspection, right? Because you never know if they didn't address the subfloor. Sometimes everything cosmetic might look well, but you want to make sure you're going in there. But for the most part, I don't really need to do much renovations in there. Assuming this is brand new carpet, I'm not going to go ahead and rip up all that carpet for now. Looks like the basement is somewhat finished it. I'm going to check the street view really quick. And what I'm looking for is just any signs of really dilapidated neighborhood. And if I ever come across these neighborhoods, I'm going to bring these things up for all of you. But Detroit is really street by street. So you just want to be a little careful, be a little bit more thorough in your drive-bys, and at least go to the area or the street behind your street. Because I drove by Detroit before, and I remember there's one highway I got off the exit and I saw essentially like half the building missing. It's like a bomb blew up in the building or something like that. It's wild. But I've also been to other parts of St. Louis where a lot of the homes and commercial shops were boarded up. But for this most part, this neighborhood looks okay. I didn't see anything that jumped out at me right away. So the next thing I want to do is I want to check on TopHap, TOPHAP.com. And I like to figure out what the crime score is. So when you go to TOPHAP.com, TopHap, you can go to the neighborhood section. And the crime score right here is 113, which isn't that bad if you think about it. If 100 is the national average, 113 is not that much higher. I've seen much higher, 130, 140, 150s, and those are much, 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 much worse areas. So this kind of coincides with a better area of Detroit. Similar, it kind of corroborates what he said. These are more desirable areas. So in 48235, I like to get the county, and I believe this is still Wayne County. Okay, just double checking. So in order for us to get the FMR, the fair market rents, what you're going to need to look for in Google is HUD FMR. FMR stands for fair market rents. Once you get there, you can go to the bottom. You can click on access to small area FMRs. Hey, Brandon, where are you trying to invest, man? I don't think I talked to you yet, but I remember getting some messages to you. But let me know where you're trying to invest, man. Maybe we'll analyze some deals together. All right, next up is Michigan. So we'll select a state and a county that we are going to be analyzing it. And this is 48235, 48235. And I'm going to note these things down. So you can see here that the 1 bedroom is 960, 2 bedroom is 1210, 3 bedroom is 1500, and a 4 bedroom is 1610. This was a 3 bedroom, right? Oh, it's a 4 bedroom. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to note this down in my Excel file right now, just so we can kind of remember them. So 1500 for a 3 bed and 1610 for a 4 bed. And this is in 48235. 48235. Boom. Just writing it down in Excel. I'll share that with all of you later. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to grab the market rents. And I usually just go to affordablehousing.com. I go to the owner section. I go to the market rent estimator. This is the property from yesterday. And I'm going to plug in 4 beds. So this is already a 4 bedroom property. So I'm only going to look at the rents for a 4 bed. Okay, 1403. That's not bad. 1403. So the number I'm focusing on is the number on the far right, which means that for 25 units within a 1.2 mile radius, the average rent here was 1403. Now, the reason I care about this number is because, one, usually there is a test. It's called the rent reasonableness test. And the rent reasonableness test means that typically the housing authority will not allow you to charge more in rent to a household simply because they are a voucher holder for all the obvious reasons. Now, they're going to compare 1403 to 1610. Now, this is something that I might ask Stu and say, hey, if I'm getting a property in this area on this street, blah, 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 what do you think I can realistically charge for rent? Right now, I'm only going to underwrite using 1403 because that is the market rent versus compared to 1610. That is my quote unquote ceiling rent. And you never know whether or not they want you to include utilities, etc. So something for you to be aware of. So I'm going to use 1610 for now as my MR or my fair market rents on this property. All right. So what have we done so far? We've gone through and we started with some recommendations on zip codes. And as soon as I got these zip codes, I shared them all with you. I've only gotten 5. I didn't get 10, and I'm only sharing half. I'm sharing everything I know with all of you. I also got some minimum rents. So a 4 bedroom is typically $1,400 a rent, which is great because that's what we saw on the affordablehousing.com. So I feel very comfortable putting in $1,400 for the rent on this property. We got 12% property management, 10% CapEx, and 5% vacancy just to be a little bit safer whenever looking at this area. We went ahead and we looked at the property and we got to understand what the street view looked like, what my overall renovations look like. I think this property is probably ready to go and it's rent ready, but you always got to be a little bit careful. Like, what if someone breaks into the home while you're in escrow, et cetera, and they mess things up? So I'm always going to leave a little bit of budget to paint the property just in case any issues come up, but also as a reserve for any other issues that might pop up a little bit later. And that's okay, right? So continuing on, I also got the crime index score, which is 113. I live in an area that's about 88 or 90 out of 100. 100 is a national average. So this is 113. So it's not that bad. And when I did the street drive-by, I didn't really see anything that jumped out to me right away. So it's always good. It's always healthy to do your own Google Street View and just drive the neighborhood to go front and back of the streets so that you can figure out whether or not this is an appropriate area. Then we got the FMRs from the HUD website. And then we also got the market rents. All right. So just so everybody knows where the numbers are coming from, the next thing I want to do is get the property tax number, which is 150 right here at 150. And a homeowner insurance is $54. I'm at least going to add in a 30% premium. So I'm going to take 54 times 1.3 when I do this. Okay. All right. So I am going to start sharing with all of you the Excel file now on the other side. Boom. Just so it stops lagging. Share my window. Boom. All right. All right, let's plug in some numbers. What was the purchase price here? Purchase price is $125,000. I'm going to put in my rehab now. Rehab, I'm going to put in the square footage. I'm assuming there's no termite issues. Let's keep going up. It's freezing right now. I'm not changing any more items in the bathroom. I am going to set aside some money to paint the place at $3 a square foot. So that's $125, $1,264, $1,264, $3 a square foot. And I'm going to set aside some money for some roof repairs and some money set aside for landscaping. And that's pretty much all I'm going to have on the reserve side for this property. So I was going to leave about $7,000, $6,950. Okay, $6,950. Perfect. My monthly rent, as I said earlier, was going to be $1,403. All right. Got that in there. 1,403. My property taxes I got from earlier on the Redfin website. The insurance was $54, but I multiplied by 1.3 because typically the insurance estimates on Redfin might be related to a primary residence. To get property taxes, you Google by, hey, is it Adriana or Adriana? Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. But for me, I just use the property tax estimates right from Redfin. Usually they are pretty accurate, but they might be based off of the current assessor's records on using their number. But if you go to the payment calculator section on Redfin, you'll be able to see that right there. The other way to go about it is in other cities or counties, like I was analyzing deals in St. Louis County, I was looking up the property tax records, and you can look it up on the county assessor, and you can back into how they calculate the rates. Just be careful if there are any homestead or primary residence exemptions. So sometimes that's how you get numbers a little bit lower. But in otherwise, other areas, they have a pretty straightforward calculation for property taxes. For example, in San Diego County, I know that my property taxes is 1.25% of the purchase price as soon as it is acquired. So that's how I would do it. And there's multiple ways, but Redfin is the easiest way because all we're doing here right now is determining whether or not it's worth a while for us to dive deeper. And by diving deeper means that you're doing a general estimate of rehab expenses, just kind of just like what we did on the Excel file, because you're trying to figure out like, hey, if my rehab was this number, is it worth a while for me to call a contractor to go out there and give me a bid? Because good contractors are busy. And if they know that you're just kind of kicking around the tires and you're not really taking them serious and you're wasting their time, well, the good contractor is going to stop taking your calls. So that's something that you want to really kind of figure out and just go through all these different scenarios to figure out whether or not this is even worth your time. All right, so let's keep going. So on our war chest percentage, which is maintenance, I'm setting aside 10% of my rent every single month, anticipating that something will break. Look, a window will probably break. Your HVAC will eventually go out, especially if you're in a cold weather area like Detroit. The roof is going to go, HVAC is going to go, the furnace is going to go. So at some point, a water heater will break. All right, so this is why you got to set aside money every single month for repairs, because that money does not belong with you. I think people make that mistake all the time. They estimate that there is no repair expenses, and that is a little ridiculous if you think about it. How can you possibly expect that nothing ever is going to break inside your home? All right. We have 1403. All right. So now we're going to upgrade our down payment to 25%. All right. At 25%, I am going to get a loan for the balance of this. So that equals to asking price minus the down payment. And then right now we're probably at about an 8.5% interest rate on this property. Okay. Now at 8.5% interest, this equals a PI of 720 plus your TI of 220. So that equals to about 940. All right. After you take out all these expenses, well, boom, what does that leave you? That leaves you, assuming your rent is 1403. I'm going to write all these scenarios out for all of you now. 1403. What's my cash flow per month? $83. What's my cash on cash return? 2.4%. What's my purchase price? $125. What's my rehab? It's going to be $69.40. So I'm just going to write in $7,000 just to kind of keep things simple. And that's my interest rate. All right. Well, to me, 2.4% is not a deal. So what are we going to do here, right? We're going to put in 1403, but I'm going to play around with the purchase price to see what will get me to a 15% cash on cash return. Well, what's that going to take? If I lower my purchase price, that's the first thing I do. If I lower my purchase price to 75, how about 80? All right, 78. All right, that's close enough. If I lower my purchase price to $78,000, that's going to cash flow me $354, and that's going to result in a 14. Oh, so that's basically 15%, 1.5. That's still assuming a $7,000 rehab, and my down payment is still 25%, and I'm still at 8.5% interest rate. Okay. Now, what if that property was really turnkey and I didn't need to do anything else? Well, what if I divided that by 2? Okay. Now, all of a sudden, my rehab is half. How much more can I afford to pay for this property if I still want to keep 15% return? How about 85? That's fine. That's probably not going to work. 81, 82. So I would be willing to pay 82 grand if my rehab was also a little bit lower at 3,500. See what I'm doing here, guys? So this is how you determine, like, well, what if I got this property at 82,000? Well, this is now worth my effort. If I can get the property between 78 to 82, this might make it worth a while for me to call contractors like, hey, this is a deal. Why don't you go out there, and if my rehab stays within 3,500 to 7,000, then that's still a deal for me. See what I'm doing here, guys? I'm simply messing around with the scenarios and playing around with the scenarios to see what I can possibly get. Now, if I all of a sudden I was like, hey, Stu, I'm trying to buy this property and I'd love for you to do an inspection out there and tell me how much more I can make. Well, now he might come back and say, well, if I get $1,500 for rent instead of $1,400, what might that get me? What am I willing to pay now? Well, now I'm willing to pay $90,000. And I'm going to go back to my full rehab budget. 85,000. Okay. Yeah. So if I'm all of a sudden able to get $1,500 in rent, and that will cash me $385, I'm now willing to pay $85,000, even if my rehab is still $7,000. See what I'm doing here, guys? Right? Playing around all the numbers and seeing. So I'm gonna go back to 1403, but now I have a really good gauge on what my deal looks like. All right. The next thing I want to do is I want to play around and see if I can get this deal on a creative finance deal, which means that I like to figure out whether or not I can get this subject to or a seller finance deal. Now, let me pull up PropStream because that's the first thing I want to do to figure out whether or not I would be able to take over this as a loan. All right, let me stop sharing my camera so it doesn't lag when I share an entire screen. Share the entire screen with you all right now. Boom. All right, so now I have PropStream, and I'm going to plug in this address, 16744 Oakfield. What I'm doing right now is I like to figure out whether or not there is an existing loan in place. And that comes from putting in your address in PropStream and clicking on the details section. If there is an underlying loan, there will be something in the mortgage section, which is right here. If you're able to see this on the screen. And you can kind of see that right here, this property was bought cash. So Someone bought this property for cash at $52,000, and now they're trying to flip it for $125,000. So they're trying to make $75,000 spread minus closing costs, etc. Okay, so likely, if this is a flipper, they might have bought this property with cash. They might have bought this property with hard money, so they probably want all their money back out. So chances of them going for a creative finance deal where the seller financing everything is lower, but it doesn't mean it's next to none. Now, if this property stayed on the market for a lot longer, then they might be more open to negotiations. But right now, how long has this property been on the market for? It's only been on the market for 31 days. So I will wait at least 60 days before anything, even reaching out. But I know now this is owned free and clear. Okay, well, if it's owned free and clear, at what interest rate is that 8.5% might this make this a deal? Well, at 1.5 at 1403 rent, 25% down, what interest rate would this make this still a deal? At 1.5%? At 1%? Okay. If I give this person 1% interest rate at 25% down, $7,000 thing, and I'm still giving them $125,000, right? So what am I doing? I'm giving them the price that they want, which is $125,000, in exchange 14.6 in exchange for getting terms that will work for me. So 502, I'd be able to cash for $500 a month, which is kind of my minimum requirement to make this worth a while. If they're able to give me 25% down, 1% interest rate. Well, what if I gave them only a 10% down payment? How much more would I be willing to pay them in interest? Now, all of a sudden, I can give them 3.75%. So I gave 10% down, which is $12,500, and I changed my interest rate to 3.75%, and that resulted in the 15%. So I might also say I can give you a 10% down at 3.75% interest rate. That's my ceiling, right? So you can start off with 3% and be willing to negotiate up to 3.75, but you already have these numbers on top of your head now. You already know how to negotiate. You already can figure out what is the number or the terms that you're willing to settle for simply by playing around with these numbers. Now, you're going to make $283, but you would be buying this for a 3.75% interest rate. Boom. All right. That could work. What's another way it could work? What if they really want a lot more money because they're trying to get as much of the cash back out? Well, what if it's a 0% interest loan, which means principal only? How much down payment can I still give and still achieve my 15% return? I can still, if the seller gives me a loan at 0% interest rate, which means principal only payment, I can give up to 27.5% down payment at 0% interest rate, assuming a $7,000 rehab, $125,000 purchase price, because my cash on cash right now is still 14.9, which is pretty close. And I'd be cash flowing $552 a month. And all my payments every single month goes towards paying down the principal, which could be a very attractive deal, right? So this is the process. This is how we run through all of the numbers and figure out whether or not something is a deal. We just went through a bunch of scenarios. So which scenario here would work for us? Let's go through everything that we talked about. One, this would work. It's listed for $125,000 right now, but I would be willing to pay you $78,000 for the property because I am assuming my loan is still 25% down at 8.5% interest rate. Okay. Or if my rehab was overestimated and it really was $3,500, right? This is the key figure right here. This is still a deal for me because now I'm willing to pay $82,000. See what it is there? I just conventionally moved up the numbers. Or what if all of a sudden I realized my rent was a lot higher? Now my rent is $1,500. Well, now I'm willing to pay $85,000. Okay. I'm trying to really highlight for all of you what are the variables that can affect the scenario of what number you can pay for and what terms you need. In this scenario, what am I doing here? What's my here? Whoops, sorry. Let me just highlight all these numbers and then just highlight the figures for obvious, just so it can be super obvious. In this scenario, my interest rate, assuming it was a fully seller finance deal, I can give you 25% down, but I need a 1% interest rate on this deal. The other scenario was, well, what if I win on the seller finance down payment section? And now my interest rate can go up to 3.75%, right? Or what's my differentiating factor now? Now you see how I'm playing around with the down payment. which is 27.5%, but then I have a 0% interest rate for the loan. This is how you will go about analyzing this deal from that perspective. Sorry, one second. Let me just kind of share this back over here so you guys can kind of see all these numbers. So just so you guys can see it, this is how I changed up all the different highlights. First scenario was assuming conventional deal didn't work at 2.4%, so I changed the purchase price. Next, I changed the rehab number. Third, I then changed the $1,500 number. And then from that point onwards, I also assumed that it was a fully seller finance deal. I can get a property and achieve my near 15% cash on cash return, assuming it was 25% down and 1% interest rate. Or I can lower the down payment to 10% and then increase my interest rate offered to the seller at 3.75%, right? Now, all of a sudden, well, what if they wanted more cash? Well, if they wanted more cash, then I would give them 27.5% interest rate, and that's my max ceiling down payment to them. But they have to give me principal-only payments, which means 0% interest. Now, one of the other scenarios I'll probably go through and share with you on how to explain it to folks is, let's go back to this scenario right here, where it was 10% down, 3.75% interest rate. Now, you might be thinking, like, who's going to accept and finance it to you at 3.75% interest rate? Well, it just all depends on how you present it, right? 3.75, right? Okay. Now, if you look at the loan section, let me kind of pull this up. Go to loan. Let's tally up the first 120 months of interest. That is $37,896. $37,896. So really what the seller would be getting is not just $125,000, but over the first 10 years of this loan, they're actually making an extra $37,000 of interest. Now, you assume there might not be any appreciation here, blah, blah, blah. Well, the seller would really be walking with, let's just call it 38, 165, 163. They're really walking around almost $163,000 because they're financing as a bank. And if you are dealing directly with the flipper and you buy directly to them, they might even have to pay an agent's commission, right? So now all of a sudden it gets really, really attractive, just simply depending on how you present the offer to your seller. And this is why it's so important for us to kind of go through all these scenarios of how do you adjust the purchase price? How do you adjust the rehab to make a deal? What if the rent is higher? What makes it a deal? What if it's fully seller finance? What's the down payment and interest rate terms that can make this a deal? And when you present it to the seller, you have to highlight not the interest rate, but more importantly, what is the net number that the seller is going to walk away with after the balloon. Now, we can, like, I set up the seller finance deal with our one of our sellers that we had a creative finance deal with, and we protected the seller by putting a deed in lieu of foreclosure, which means that we already signed over a deed in lieu that's with the title company and a servicing company that says if we miss any payments for over 30 or 90 days, whatever the term is, well, the seller gets to take back over the property without any sort of foreclosure. And this prevents them to have to go through the hassle of foreclosing it on anybody. And if I get abducted by aliens, then the seller just gets to take back over the property without any sort of foreclosure process, which saves them a ton of headache here. So that's one way you can go about it. If you guys ever want to look at what that looks like, you can look up the promissory note. In one of the lives, I put in the title, I think it says deal, where it kind of lays out the promissory note, the HUD statement, and all those different items that kind of come up as part of a seller finance deal. If you guys do want to take a look at that, let's see if I can pop it up for all of you guys. Which one is it going to be? If you guys want to look at that one, it should be in the section where it says, wow, this is like my 77th day analyzing a deal. Right here. Deal. Why we bought this home for Section 8 in Alabama. That's this one right here. And you would be able to see, what's a good one? These are all the different scenarios I went through. Here's how I presented the seller finance offer to people. Option 1, option 2, option 3. You can see how the purchase price kind of fluctuates within each option and what those terms are. What I would change here is I would probably include an amount here that talks about the total interest earned over whatever period of time until the balloon period is. Then you will also be able to see what else I include in here. Here's the promissory note on the seller finance deal, so you can actually see what a seller finance note looks like and what language it has. Again, this is not legal advice. Get your own attorneys or your own title companies to draw for the promissory note. And then what else did I have here? This was my rent increase approval. So even though we finished auto renovations when we put in that wheelchair ramp for our resident, we completed in June, but we didn't get this rent increase until December 1st. So think about the holding period that you're going to have in place, everybody, as part of that deal. So that was a wheelchair ramp we had. And this is the HUD statement that we had. So you can actually see seller finance mortgage right here, seller paid mortgage. You can see the amount and how it actually looks like on a HUD statement for your closing statement. All right, cool. So this was all we wanted to go over today. We went through some of the zip codes again. You guys are free. Hopefully you notice that I have done all of the hard work for all of you. Some of the biggest risks and issues that you might run across in life is simply related to not having the right team. I know that that is a scary position to be in because I used to be that person. I used to be very, very afraid of buying out of state because you don't know if whether or not you have someone that's dependable that's going to show up and help you. I have tried and have solved that problem by bringing on folks that have been successful in their own respective markets with their own respective teams. Detroit sounds like a scary place to invest in unless you actually have the team and people that looks out for you. And if you don't have the right preventative measures, like if you don't all of a sudden board up your homes while you're renovating the property, squatters might break into your home and squat there, right? Because they know the rules better than you do. They might get a free stay for 30 days before you can kick them out. You need local experts like that in order to succeed. And if that means it's the difference between 8% or 12% property manager, I pay that any day. Now, this also allows you to get some comfort around having some teams that's going to show up and they're actually going to show up and help you whenever you have any problems. So please, please, please make sure you're able to take advantage of the people that we brought on a podcast and really think about how you want to position your next couple of days. I turned 35 today, and I am really, really happy and excited about all of the steps that I've taken for the past couple of months to set us up so that I'm really looking forward to 35. And I'm sharing all these resources with you because I believe this is how we solve the affordable housing problem. If it wasn't for folks like you guys that are listening to this right now, I would have never had the home I grew up in. So thank you so much for caring about affordable housing. Thank you for staying consistent with me. We're going to keep doing this. We're going to be doing Christmas Eve. We're going to be doing Christmas Day. We're going to be doing New Year's Day. I'm doing this for at least 25 more days in a row. And we're just going to keep on staying consistent together because that is how we build great habits. This is how we solve the problem. And I'm so glad to be in the same community as all of you. If you guys want any of the spreadsheets, please DM me your email on Instagram at investwithkenthe, and I will have my VA send that over to you today. If you guys have any deals that you want to analyze on a market together, send them over to me and I can try to get them prioritized for a few days. I am doing this for you. I have nothing to sell all of you. I'm simply doing this and sharing with you the uncool side of real estate, which is analyzing deals every single day. That's it. We're just analyzing deals every single day together. And we do this for 18 minutes. Thank you so much for birthday wishes, everybody. I really appreciate that. I'm so passionate about affordable housing. I never claimed to be an expert in affordable housing. I'm simply here doing the work, and I'm on this journey to learn as much as possible on how to be successful in real estate and in affordable housing. And I brought on tons of guests onto the podcast. So if you guys want, please support the podcast by checking us out on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Please leave us a 5-star review. If that could be my birthday wish from all of you, it's just we've had some haters that didn't understand affordable housing and they left 1-star reviews. And it's just too bad, but that's okay. They just don't understand it. And it's our mission right now. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest fights of my lifetime is to help people understand that affordable housing is not just guns, drugs, and drama. It's for folks just like my parents who came over who didn't know English, who just needed a roof over their heads and needed a solid launching pad so that they can protect their kids, put food on the table, but put all the dreams and hopes into their kids. And I'm so blessed. I'm so glad I have the honor and the privilege to do this. So I'm super, super happy about the community that we're building. We're almost up to 600 members, I believe, the last time we checked, and we're on this road to build the largest affordable housing investment community in the United States, and that is so cool. That gets me so excited every single day. This is why I do this on my birthday. Like this is it. This does not feel like work. I'm hanging out with my friends right now. I'm hanging out with all of you. We're having fun. We're just analyzing deals together. We're just getting better together every single day. So please, please, please copy what I'm doing, put it on your own YouTube channel. Look at the same 5 zip codes that I presented to you and bring value to those in your friendship circles and your communities, because I'm not holding anything back from you, because I truly believe in an abundance mindset. There's enough for everybody. Affordable housing is such a big problem. There is enough for everybody to make money and help others at the same time. Analyze the same deals I'm doing using the same spreadsheet so that you know if a deal comes across the table and slaps you across the face, you will recognize that as a deal. And most importantly, if you're partnering with other folks and they're asking you, hey, how do you know this is a deal? Well, you can point them to your own YouTube channel and say, hey, look at my YouTube channel. I know that this is a deal because I looked at 100 deals in the past that were not deals. Or I looked at 100 deals in the past and I looked at every single way that each deal could have been a deal, which is even better because for every deal, there is a number or terms that make it a deal, just like we shared on the spreadsheet today. You can change the purchase price, you can change the rehab number, you can change the rent number, you can change down payment percentage, you can change the interest rate. Every deal has a set of numbers and terms that make it a deal. And you can only do that and realize that and create your buy boxes for every single zip code if you do this properly. Okay. And if you build your team and you have people looking out for deals, you can be very specific. You can be like, hey, in zip code 48235, I will only buy properties that are 4 bedrooms at $78,000 for purchase price with a $7,000 rehab more. Boom. That's your buy box. That's it. You might not ever have to analyze another deal in 48235 if you communicate that to a realtor in Detroit and say, this is my buy box, right? This will save you a ton of time. I see one of the biggest reasons that people leave real estate or they quit real estate is because they get burnt out. They get burnt out from over analyzing deals and seeing zero results. Well, what if you only had to analyze each zip code once and then you're done? Well, I just shared my buy box with you. My buy box for 48235 is a 4-bedroom property, single family home in a decent neighborhood where the purchase price needs to be $70,000 and the rehab is not over $7,000. This is all assuming a 25% down, 8.5% interest rate on a DSCR loan, a debt service coverage ratio loan, which means that they do not finance your property using your own W-2 income or your tax returns. They look at the asset and they look at long-term rental rates for this property and see whether or not it's a true deal. So that's one way you guys can go about this. I hope this was super helpful for all of you. We're going to keep doing this for the next 23 more days. And just depending on the feedback, I will either keep it going or I might change it up a little bit. I don't know. It just depends on feedback from folks and what is helpful and what people need help with. I'm just doing this alongside with you. I, again, do not claim to be an expert. I'm just super passionate about this because I grew up in affordable housing myself. So have an amazing Sunday, everybody. Spend some good quality time with your family. I hope you guys get some rest and I hope you guys can be back at it. Please don't take your foot off the gas pedal now. This is separation season. From now until the end of the year, everybody's taking their time off. If you just do what I'm doing every single day, you would analyze another 14, 15 properties. If you just do one a day, just like what I'm doing. Or if you don't know what to do, just again, on your own YouTube channel tomorrow, copy the same property analyze today, record yourself doing it on one stream, and then put in your own YouTube channel. And that is all you need. Take the thinking out of it. If that helps you build momentum to get 15 days out of the way just by copying what I'm doing, let's do it together. All right. Have an amazing day. Again, this was not investment advice. This is not solicitation for any investments. I'm simply showing you what I'm doing every day. Have an amazing day, everybody. Thank you so much. And I will talk to you all again tomorrow.